I don't think I really need to do an introduction for the next speaker, but I think the etiquette demands me to do so. We're now heading over to Florida, and our beloved godbrother Sripad Bhaktivedanta Ashram Maharaj, who I have to say we're very grateful to, because throughout Kartik he gave various beautiful katha. Each time I think he was somewhat ill, but you wouldn't have been able to tell it, because he started from a place of feeling unwell, but then he'd just go in a stream of nectar for about an hour, captivating us all. So we're all very excited to hear your offering today, Maharaj. You have until 9:25 your time. I don't know if you've got a clock.
Okay. I do.
To fill our hearts with your offering. Maharaj, good morning to you, and Haribol, welcome.
Haribol. Can you see me?
Perfectly, yeah, really good.
Okay, I don't know what's going on with my screen. Okay, you can see me.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't really see what's going on, so I'll just speak. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Guruve Gurachandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Vanchakalpaturubhyascha Kripa Sindhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. First of all, I offer my most respectful obeisances onto the lotus feet of my divine Diksha Guru, Om Vishnupad, Astottara Satashishimat Srila Gaur Govinda Goswami Maharaj. Again, I offer my most respectful obeisances onto the lotus feet of my divine Sannyas and Shiksha Guru, Om Vishnupad, Astottara Satashishimat Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj, and I offer my most respectful obeisances on those feet of my Param Guru Devs. Nitya Lila Pavishtam Vishnu Parastottara Satashishimat Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Nitya Lila Pavishtam Vishnu Parastottara Satashishimat Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshava Smaraj. Offer my most respectful obeisances unto all Vaishnavas, Guru Parampara. So I came on at the end of Madhuvrat Prabhu's offering, and I was thinking, oh, I missed it. I should have come on earlier, but I was just trying to get my mind together for the offering, and it's so nice to hear how you devotees are going out on Naga Sankirtan in London, in Portobello Road, Portobello Road. Amazing, because also here in Miami, we're also going out on Naga Sankirtan, and we're going out in a place which is similar to Portobello Road. It's like the art district of Miami. And we were out there till 11 o'clock last night, and the place was just starting. I mean, you wouldn't think that there's any COVID warning here, because the place is just like teeming with people, and they're just lapping up the Harinam. So it's really inspiring to hear, really inspiring. And I'm really looking forward to coming down to London and joining in your Naga Sankirtan. In fact, it's given me impetus to come back, to be quite honest.
I have to say, woo! Yes.
I mean,
we're training up for it, Mars. We're gonna get ready for you.
No, I haven't got what it wasn't like before, but I still got a bit of gas in the tank, as they say. So, yeah, I was thinking that I don't know if somebody else had spoken along the lines that I'm going to speak now, But I just wanted to recount the history of the relationship of our Srila Gurudev and our Srila Prabhupada. Srila Gurudev, he recounts that he was, let me see, in 1947, that there was a gathering in Calcutta. And Param Gurudev, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, he was there, and there were sannyasis, brahmacharis around him. And there was one grihastha who was sitting in the back. And then Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav, Param Gurudev had that brahmachari, that grihastha, brought to the front and sat him right next to him. And Gurudev, he was thinking, who is this grihastha who his guru has brought in the midst of so many saffron-clad devotees, and not only brought him in the midst of them, but had him sitting right next to him. So he was curious. And then he asked his spiritual master, who is this person? And then he explained that his name is Abhay Charnaravindam. He said that he's very dear servant of Prabhupada, meaning Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada. He's very, very dear. And let me see. So he said, Gurudev here is saying, who is this devotee? It was very rare that he had done this with others. Afterwards, he told me, this is Abhay Charnavinda Babu, my dear god brother. He's a very special disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. He's very humble, very qualified. You should take note of him. You should hear carefully from him, and you should serve him. One time I heard Gurudev, he said that he is talking about Srila Prabhupada. He said that he's a genius, that he is translated. He's writing so much that he's a genius. So Gurudev, he then started to, right from the beginning, this is from 1947, he said that, that when I saw what a relationship that my guru had with your Prabhupada, so then I made it my business that I should get close to him. I should get to know him. So he said that he was cooking for Abhay Charnaravindam. He was washing his clothes. He was serving him. And in this way, he became close. One time, Gurudev, he said that, maybe more than one time, he said that devotees should know that before ISKCON, I was his disciple. That I was his first disciple. Because he was serving Prabhupada. He was hearing from him. And in this way, very, very close relationship was there between himself and Srila Prabhupada. I was thinking I'm not really qualified to speak on this topic, but I was thinking just as my Diksha Guru, Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj, he is disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And he has this one-pointed mood towards Srila Prabhupada. And his mood towards Srila Prabhupada, at least from the external perspective, there is reverence, which is there. Intimacy, obviously, but there's reverence. But in disciple-guru relationship, and here we're talking about Shiksha, disciple and guru, that it is not just one way, but as many relationships that there are, then there will be so many variations in the subtleties and nuances of these relationships. So sometimes devotees, they find it difficult to to accommodate. This is devotees in ISKCON, let's say, to be blunt. They find it difficult to accommodate that Srila Narayana Maharaj, he says that he is Shiksha disciple of Srila Prabhupada. But though he has that mood of being a disciple and that Prabhupada is his revered guru, but there was also an intimacy that he had with Srila Prabhupada, that Srila Prabhupada's initiated Harinam Diksha and Sannyas disciples, that they were not privy, they did not have that type of relationship. That he could joke with Srila Prabhupada. He could sit down with him on the same level. He could discuss in almost like a brotherly way. Though Srila Prabhupada is his uncle and Srila Prabhupada is his revered guru, but there was that intimacy going back right there to 1940s. So Srila Gurudev, he also recalls how when the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti was formed, that Abhayacharya Ravindam, prior to the forming of the Samiti, that Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj had stayed in the house of Prabhupada for some 6 months. And their relationship also became quite intimate. So when Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, who at that time was still a brahmachari, when he decided to form the Gaudiya Vedanta Samiti, then that god brother of his, who he had bonded in a very, very close and intimate way, that he asked him that he be one of the founding members. So Srila Prabhupada, in this way, he had this relationship with Srila Gurudev, that very, very close. So then when Srila Prabhupada, he left his home, and then he went to Mathura. He was staying in one dharamshala. And then the devotees, they told Gurudev that, oh, Abhayacharya Ravindam, he is staying in such and such dharamshala in Mathura. And then Gurudev, he brought Srila Prabhupada. He said, why are you staying there? That we have our place here, that you come, you stay here with us. And Srila Prabhupada, he moved and he stayed there in Keshavji Gaudiya Math. And he was still doing his writing because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada had given the instruction that he should write, he should preach in the English language. So Prabhupada was absorbed writing and doing his bhajan there in Keshavji Gaudiya Math. So then when Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, he came to Mathura, Srila Gurudev, he was already sannyas. Prabhupada was in the Grihastha Ashram, or you can say that now he was Vanaprastha. And he still took Prabhupada as his Shiksha Guru. But Gurudev was a sannyasi. So they had a very intimate relationship. Before we were born, before practically any of us here who are in this group, before we were born, that relationship was there. Before practically anybody in ISKCON was born, that deep relationship was there. Very, very friendly, very close. So when Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, he come to Mathura, then Gurudev, he said that you should give sannyas to Abhayacharya Ravindam, that he's so qualified. And Prabhupada, he was hesitant. Even though Prabhupada, his idea was that he would take sannyas, but he was hesitant. He said, I remember the verse, Yasyaham Anugrinami Harisye Sharanam Shanai. That when Krishna, he wants to give special mercy, then he takes everything away. Srila Prabhupada once quoted this to his disciples in America. And when the disciples were laughing, Srila Prabhupada said, don't laugh. That when he takes away these attachments, that it's very painful. So Srila Prabhupada was hesitating. But there was another elderly sannyas, grihastha there. I think he was maybe 99 years old or very old. And he told Prabhupada that, oh, Abhay Charanavidam, if you take sannyas, I will also take sannyas. And then we see there's the picture of Srila Prabhupada sannyas with Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj sitting in the middle. And then on his left is Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. And to his right is Bhaktivedanta Muni Maharaj. And Prabhupada, staying in Mathura, then he continued his writing, his preaching, and then in due course he moved to Vrindavan. There are different places where he stayed in Vrindavan, but his relationship with Srila Gurudev was always very, very close. That when Prabhupada took sannyas, that Srila Gurudev, he was the person, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj was giving the initiation, but the priest performing the rituals was Gurudev. And then when Srila Gurudev, when Prabhupada, he had the sannyas has to go and then get put on the sannyas cloth, I believe that Gurudev, he assisted in that. So he was assisting him, who now became his junior sannyas god brother, but Srila Gurudev always took him as my revered Shiksha Guru, though they had such a close relationship. And Srila Prabhupada, reciprocally, he took Srila Narayana Maharaj as his Shiksha disciple. He said that our relationship is eternal. He said that just as when I met Srila Prabhupada, meaning Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada, then I understood what is love. So our relationship is like that. This is coming from Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada. He's comparing his relationship with Gurudev to his relationship with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada. But only somebody whose heart is open can take this. It's quite amazing. It's quite amazing how sometimes devotees, they cannot see, hear what is so obvious. So Prabhupada, he received sannyas. And I recall, I always liked this pastime, that when the sannyas initiation was going on, Param Pujapad Akinchan Das Babaji Maharaj was chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare. And then somebody told him, oh, quiet, chant softly. But then when devotees were not looking, Prabhupada looked to his dear friend and said, more. And Akinchan Krishnadas Babaji Maharaj said, I knew then that he's the personality. Pritiviti Atiyati Nagaradi Gram. He's the person that will spread the holy name to every town and village. I knew that he's the person. So I'm so happy that synchronistically or whatever, that we are doing Naga Sankirtan, doing Harinam, that this is so powerful. It has such an effect that we cannot imagine. So Gurudev, he would go and he would meet with Srila Prabhupada. He'd explain that after Srila Prabhupada had taken sannyas, that Prabhupada, practically speaking, he didn't even have a chada. That Gurudev would go there and Radha Damodar temple, and he would bring his chada and put his chada down for his dear friend. And there, they would engage in kirtan, that they would sing, Go Ranga Bolite Habe, Pulaka Shari, Hari Hari Bolite, Naine Babini. They would cook. Gurudev, he said that that Gurudev, that Prabhupada would make the chapatis, and then he would put the chapatis on the oven. And in this way, they're eternally working together. That how devotees, anyway, somehow we create such a sectarian mentality when it's so obvious. Well, maybe it's not obvious. Obviously, it's not obvious to everybody. But how sweet their relationship was. How sweet. That I'm sure many things that Gurudev has not told us about the sweetness and the subtleties of his relationship with our Srila Prabhupada. And they would discuss Harikatha in that place where Srila Prabhupada, he performed so much intense bhajan to Shri Radha Govinda, where he was guided by the six Goswamis, Rup Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami. There, Srila Gurudev, he would go and there engage in Harikatha with Srila Prabhupada. That when Srila Prabhupada, he left to go to the west on the steamship, Jaladuta, then he would write Gurudev, and Gurudev would send him Mridanga, he would send him Shastra for Prabhupada to continue his work, translation work, and also he would send him Mathura Peda, very nice, sweet from Mathura. Prabhupada asked Gurudev that you come, that the field here is so good that you come. But Gurudev, he said that there were few of us in Mathura. And Gurudev said that I cannot come now. But because now I'm engaged in performing so many services. That in 1967, I believe, Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, he departed from this world. And Srila Prabhupada, he was so overcome with emotion that he composed a verse which is written by Sanatana Goswami. And in it, he took out the last lines where Sri Sanatana Goswami, where Srila Prabhupada is saying that he was attached to this material world and that he's so grateful that Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, that he forced him to drink this nectarian beverage of bhakti, which is laced with renunciation. That Prabhupada said that he did not want to take sannyas, but Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj, that he forced him to take. And Srila Prabhupada, he asked that Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Maharaj's picture, that it be there in all of his temples. So Srila Gurudev, he recounts that when Srila Prabhupada came back to India, that Srila Gurudev was there to meet him. And then Srila Gurudev, he stayed with Prabhupada, Prabhupada's disciples, and very intimately, he was preaching on behalf of Srila Prabhupada. He was serving Prabhupada along with the early disciples. And even when Prabhupada, he came back and he wanted to establish a place in Mayapur, then Srila Gurudev, he explains that Prabhupada, he had scoured all over, and some of his god brothers, and this is like a transcendental, let me say, this is totally transcendental relationship between god brothers. What happens is sometimes we hear of some relationships going on with our gurus and their god brothers. And sometimes we kind of bring this transcendental relationship down to our mundane platform, and then we make offense. But we should understand that his relationship with his god brothers, not all, but generally very, very close. And even they may have their differences amongst them, that it is not for us uh, to put our mundane perspective into their transcendental disagreements. So some of his god brothers, they were a little bit peeved off because Srila Prabhupada, he made some comments that maybe they were just eating and sleeping and not really preaching. And Srila Gurudev, he harmonized that we are preaching, but our preaching is not to the degree of Swami Maharaj. And he would harmonize amongst them. That they say why he took the name Prabhupada. And even though Gurudev, he'll, practically speaking, you hardly hear that he'll call our Prabhupada Prabhupada. He'll say your Prabhupada. Because this was something, an agreement which was made between the disciples of Bhakti, Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that they would not take this name Prabhupada. And in the Gaudiya Math, they honor this. And also Gurudev, really, he honors that. I have no issue. Understand that he honors that. One time, I was in a room in Govardhan with Srila Gurudev. And something happened, and I can tend to get a bit passionate. So then I was in the room and I was complaining. And I was saying, why in Gaudiya Math they don't call him Srila Prabhupada? And then I said that, look, even Narada Muni, great sages, because there's a pastime where Narada Muni came in a disguise and said, Jai Prabhupada. I said, even Narada Muni, he calls him Prabhupada. What's wrong with this? And I started going on, and he looked at me. And I won't even tell you what he said, but he just said, you're crazy, get out. And just told me. So we have our nishta and our relationship with our Srila Prabhupada. So Gurudev, he said that in the future there may be other personalities who are very, very empowered, and their disciples may call them Prabhupada. But there's no harm. But we have our way, and there's no harm in them having their way. And in this way, he harmonized. So my time is running out. Oh, my time's run out. Okay, let me go to the ending then.
Well, Maharaj, you've got another 5 minutes.
Okay. Let me see. So Srila Gurudev, he said that Srila Prabhupada, he called him to come to preach, and that he did not come right away. But he said that, but I did come finally after 20-something years. So he said, at least I've come after 20-something years. And what was Gurudev's intention? His intention is to help the devotees because we're all one family. And this was the instruction which was given to him by Srila Prabhupada. So at the end of Srila Prabhupada's manifest pastimes, I don't know if anybody's read this, but I'll just read Gurudev's words where he summarizes the conversation that took place between him and Srila Prabhupada. That I'll just read this. Prabhupada, he said, wow, there's a lot. Okay. He said that when Prabhupada called for Gurudev, he said, bring him a chair. And then Gurudev says, I sat on it near to him. Yeah, because first Prabhupada had offered Gurudev to sit on the bed. And Gurudev paid his Dandava Pranams to the bed that Srila Prabhupada was laying on. And then a chair was brought for Gurudev. And then Gurudev is saying, first he began to weep. His heart was melted. From the core of his heart, he told me, Narayana Maharaj, can you excuse me? I feel that there's cause for you to forgive me. For the sake of preaching, I have told my disciples some things, which perhaps I should not have said. Also, I spoke very strongly about my God brothers in one letter, which was then sent to everyone. I said that we're preaching and others are not, that they're Kanishta Adhikaris who don't preach but are idle. I said that none of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas helped me, that they only take Mahaprasad and they sleep. At this time, Gurudev speaking, at this time, many of his sannyas disciples were watching. His words and moods implied to me many things about how he wanted to encourage his young students. As we're careful with babies, so he had sometimes instructed some of them not to mix with his god brothers and the other Gaudiya Vaishnavas, to save his newcomers from becoming disturbed or confused. He sometimes told them not to visit anywhere else. One reason was that a few of his god brothers had done some wrong things. Also, his disciples did not understand the Indian ways of indirect subtle meanings. Also, he did not want them to lose heart due to criticism from any Indian Vaishnavas who may not have understood their sensitivities and his Swamiji's style of training them. So Srila Swami Maharaj had been a member of the Gaudiya Math for a very long time. He knew regulations, Siddhanta. He could not teach all his disciples everything in just a few years. He had been cultivating many Vaishnava Westerners from different countries, but they still lacked our Vedic culture and sadhachara, devotional habits. He had given his young disciples instructions to avoid other Vaishnavas, just to protect them from becoming discouraged. And even now, there's so much sadhachara that still we Westerners, we don't know. Even us who have come into the Gaudiya Math, still there's so many sadhacharas. I won't go into it. But being with Srila Gaur Govinda Maharaj and being trained in some of these sadhacharas, I see it. But no need to say anything. So he would say, although they're not fully trained, their devotional attitude is so nice. I'm praying to Guru Maharaj and the Rupanuga Guru Vaga to please them all. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and Sri Baldev will surely give them their mercy. Srila Swami Maharaj was remembering all these things, and he now requested me, kindly tell the other Vaishnavas that I have made this offense and to please excuse me. I have so much sorrow for this. So you see Srila Prabhupada's mood, that Srila Prabhupada in preaching, that he was a lion, a very, very powerful, powerful lion. And in preaching, then he held no holds barred. But in his heart, what is his heart? And this is his, practically speaking, I think this is his last conversation that he's having. And he's asking that you tell my God brothers that I may have spoke so strongly, but this is not my heart. This is not my inner intention. Please try and understand this. That even though I told my disciples, don't go here, don't go there, But what is really my intention? This he'll explain. So then Gurudev said, you are my Shiksha Guru and a pure Vaishnava. I know that you cannot do anything that is not in the line of bhakti. You have done these things only for the purpose of serving your Gurudev and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we also do this. Because we see that Gurudev in his preaching, that sometimes he will say things, and I'm staying in a house with ISKCON devotees, and they say, Narayana said this, and Narayana said that. And sometimes I stupidly try and just, I justify everything. But the point is that Srila Narayana is in his esteemed position, and he can say things that we, in our lowly position, we should not imitate. So Gurudev also, in his preaching, he spoke very, very strongly. But why did he speak like that? Because he sees that these devotees in ISKCON, they're not different from him. They're his younger god brothers, his younger nieces, his younger nephews, and that they're going off, they're making aparad. So he's giving them danda, he's giving chastisement out of love for their good. But they can't see it. They're seeing that he's their enemy. They can't see that he's giving them mercy. That danda is mercy. He's giving them mercy, and they're taking the mercy and they're coughing it off. They can't take. But I should not speak, because when I get danda, also I do the same thing. So he said, you have not done these things only for the purpose of serving your Gurudev and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we also do this. All of us are indebted to you. There's no question. We know the prediction. Pritiviti Achayata Nagaradigram. You have performed a miracle. You have spread his glories everywhere. We don't think that you have done anything wrong. So I have nothing. I have nothing for which to excuse you. Gurudev is saying, there's nothing to excuse you. But I will lay your request to your senior Vaishnavas as you have requested. Gurudev is saying, you are my Shiksha Guru. Whatever instructions you give me, I will follow with absolute sincerity. This is the relationship between Gurudev and Srila Prabhupada. Tears were very sweetly falling from his eyes, meaning Prabhupada. He was acting in such a humble way, as if he was not a good Vaishnava, but actually he was, like Srila Narottam Das Thakur and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He continued, meaning Prabhupada continued. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada ordered all of us to preach in Europe and America. That was his strong desire. His other desire was that we all work together to preach. I didn't waste a single moment. I tried my best, and to some extent, it has been successful. His voice was choked with emotion as he continued to speak. If we can work conjointly, then as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu declared, this Sankirtan movement has great possibilities. If we can work conjointly. Then he told me, I want you to help take care of my disciples. I want them to be good and qualified devotees. If they come to you, please, you care for them. Many of his disciples were nearby, so he softly whispered in Bengali, when I went to the West, I caught so many monkeys in my net. Really? They're very expert in quarreling amongst themselves like that. They're still very young and untrained. So I request you that after my departure, you help them in every respect. Considering the implications of this order from my Shiksha Guru, Gurudev said, I hesitated. Meaning that what Prabhupada has instructed and that Gurudev accepts, he has to follow. He said, then he grasped both of my hands. Prabhupada grasped his hands. Prabhupada grasping the hands of his very dear friend and his disciple. You see? See how close is their relationship. That Gurudev is his disciple, Shiksha disciple, but he's also a very close friend. So Prabhupada is grasping his hand and saying, oh, you do this for me. You do this for me. And Gurudev said, what could I do? Therefore I agreed. saying, I promise, according to my ability and my Bhakti Siddhanta Tattva, understanding of the conclusive statements of Bhakti, I will always be ready to help them as you request. And this is why Gurudev has traveled all over the world so many times. This is why he is giving his last breath for us. He promised Prabhupada that he would do it. That we who are disciples, grand disciples of Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he has taken us and he has given this mercy, fulfilling his request. Then I told him, I want to say something to them. Then Srila Swami Maharaj at once became inspired and called to them. Oh, you should all come near and hear Narayana Maharaj. Please take him into your hearts. Listen, let me see. My God, it's too long. Give me a time to end. When should I end?
How much you got to go, Marge? Because we're
10
5
minutes.
minutes over. Huh?
5 minutes, 10 minutes? Or should I end in 2 minutes?
You got
5
5 or 10? Which?
Okay, 7 minutes.
Okay, so go for it.
Then I told him, I want to say something to them. Then Srila Swami Maharaj at once became inspired and called them. Oh, you should all come and hear Narayana Maharaj. Please take into your hearts what he's speaking. Then I told them all, Gurudev speaking. Don't think that Srila Swami Maharaj is leaving this world. Gurudev is eternal. You're fortunate to have such a bona fide Guru and Vaishnava. You should try to preach his mission more and more enthusiastically. If you are after material things, you will find yourselves quarreling over name, over fame, over worldly gain. You'll not be following his teachings. You'll not be following his mission. You'll be doing wrong. What he's saying, that if you're after name, fame, quarreling like this, because of this, then you are not really ISKCON. That's what Gurudev is saying. You'll be doing wrong. So don't pursue your own self-interest. Give up all these things. To serve Srila Swami Raj and to preach his mission, you should be united with all the devotees. He's saying be united with all the devotees. Not just the devotees within that society. We're all Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Actually, this is a new age we're in. It's a new age. There's a saying, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. So really, it's for the younger generation that they will unite. But the younger generation, they should also become strong in bhakti. They should learn what is coming from Prabhupada, Srila Rupa Goswami, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, and Srila Gurudev. They should learn very deeply. They should practice. And then they should unite with proper Siddhanta, not doing the same thing 2.0, where you have an institution and everything gets watered down because you have to water down the philosophy because the gurus are not really on the real level. And then the disciples learn to water down philosophy. If you unite in that, it won't be impactful. Sorry, I'm going off the thing. So Gurudev said, don't quarrel with others over a small point. Don't expel anyone from this mission by finding small faults. Try to behave like friends with brotherhood, and then you can preach. If you have difficulty with any of these things, then as Swami Maharaj has requested me, you can come to me and I'll try to help you from the core of my heart. They all listened to me then, and this was recorded on a cassette tape. Srila Swami Maharaj turned his head slowly. You see, in front of Prabhupada, Gurudev is telling them, you come, I will help you. And what they did, they called him a Sahaja. So obviously, he's going to come and give them some danda. So Srila Swami Maharaj turned his head slowly, looking over his devotees as they gathered in closely. Then he slowly lifted his hand as if to call them to attention and said, listen to Narayana Maharaj. Don't fight amongst yourselves. I have given all directions in my book. Then he lowered his head. After this, Swami Maharaj told me, I pray to you that you will put me into my samadhi with your own hand. I don't want to take samadhi from anyone else's hands. I think that you are the proper person. Try to understand. Before Srila Prabhupada, he left the planet. He told Tamal Krishna Maharaj, other devotees, you go to Mathura, you learn from Srila Narayana Maharaj. What is the process of putting the acharya into samadhi? After they learned, they came back. Have you learned from him? He said, yes, we've learned. Then he said, call Srila Narayana Maharaj. Then when Gurudev came, then this conversation took place. After the disciples had learned what to do, then Prabhupada said, no, I want that you should do it. You are the proper person. After my samadhi arranged to celebrate my Mahotsav separation festival, you should give some amount of money to all the 7 temples in Vrindavan and to all the Gaudiya mats. It depends upon you, how much, whether 201 rupees, 1,001 rupees, according to your discretion. So some devotees say that this is Srila Prabhupada handing the torch, that the acharya is handing to one acharya. Whether this is so or not, but even you can just see what is the depth, the intimacy, the closeness of the relationship between them. That his last words, he's saying, you do everything for me. And he begged him, practically speaking, by taking Gurudev's hands, caressing his hands, rubbing Gurudev's hands. You do this for me, he said, by his mood, by his heart to heart. He spoke to Gurudev, not with his mouth, but with his heart. And Gurudev said, I could not refuse, that I will do everything in my power. And then after that, he said, you put me in samadhi. You do everything for me. You arrange everything from A to Z, A to Z. He said they should all hear these instructions. So according to your discretion, whatever you recommend, you do. They should all hear these instructions and arrange to pay. Arrange a Mahotsav festival, also Mathura, and invite all the senior Vaishnavas to the feast. Invite all the Vaishnavas in Vrindavan. Do this for me. And again, I'm telling you that you should always help my devotees. So then, in conclusion, I believe this is Bhagavat Maharaj speaking. While Srila Prabhupada, this is our Bhagavat Maharaj, while Srila Prabhupada was lying there, he assumed a certain pose. We couldn't understand it. We just thought he was lying on the bed. He had his hands in a certain way. His head was in a certain way. His legs were in a certain way. And he arched his body in a certain manner. Srila Narayana Maharaj said, oh, then Srila Narayana Maharaj told Bhagavat Maharaj. Bhagavat Maharaj explained that Srila Narayana Maharaj called Bhagavat Maharaj over and told him he is in such a mudra. It is a type of mudra. He is dancing. He is dancing in Vrindavan. He's dancing there with Krishna. He said this is exhibited by someone in the last period before he passes away. It indicates that he's dancing with Krishna. When he exhibits this form in bed, it means that he's dancing with Krishna. It is a dancing pose. Then Gurudev, he had left and he had come back now as Srila Prabhupada was leaving. Then Gurudev came with his brahmacharis, and Gurudev, he sang Shri Rupa Manjari Pada, very slowly, very sweetly, very emotionally. And everybody was overcome with tears. And Srila Prabhupada, he was exhibiting these symptoms, rocking back and forth in his bed. He would flail his arms in the air and then suddenly stop as if he was stunned. He wasn't speaking at all. And then he would groan. Then suddenly he would belch very, very loudly. Then he would shed tears and tremble. Then he would roll again. In this way, he would continue on and on in so many different postures that devotees were horrified until Srila Narayana Maharaj came. And he was the last one with whom Srila Prabhupada communicated. And I don't know what Srila Narayana Maharaj said. This we've just heard, what Gurudev said. So, Srila Narayana Maharaj again speaking. When we arrived in those final hours in November 14th, he was not speaking. I felt at that time, by seeing his face, that he was fully remembering the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan. I think this was great mercy coming from Krishna, because he had served Radha Krishna for his entire lifetime. For that special person, Krishna absorption is there. Entrance in this way, his eyes were closed, and he was exhibiting these special symptoms, which we've just discussed. It was a very touching scene. He had no pain, no distraction. At that time, his mouth was so beautiful. It was like a blossom rose, like a lotus. These are the signs of a very great personality. Otherwise, another may cry, I am dying, I am dying, and the face will be so ugly. But he was never like that. He was like a beautiful lotus flower. I knew what he was doing, Gurudev said. He knew that he was in his gopi pose. huh? I have seen others also, including Gurudev and Srila, the eternal past. I've seen Pujapad, Ananga Mohan Brahmachari, Srila Jagannath Babaji Maharaj, a disciple of Srila Bhaksan Nrsinga Maharaj, and Sri Padmanabh Maharaj. I've seen many devotees when they departed, so I could judge what was Krishna, Krishna, and Radhe, Radhe. There are particular signs at that moment which show that someone is remembering Krishna, and Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj was exhibiting all those signs. He and very no sin, no attachment to the body or anything else. He was no longer anxious for his young disciples, nor for had established in his Krishna consciousness, only remembering Krishna. Our brahmacharis was softly singing time. I saw it thus. I was also fully satisfied. I knew then that he would surely go soon, but they didn't know when he would go. He would leave now or in a short time. He had previously talked with me, requested. I was not leaving for Mathura, and we were informed that he departed a few hours later. Shortly after that time, we returned to Krishna Balaram Mandir and made all arrangements for his Mahotsav. According to his wishes, we took him on procession to most of the important deities of Vrindavan. There were so many of his disciples and other persons chanting in that procession, and all of the Brijvasis came out on the streets to honor him. After this, I prepared his body. I wrote the special mantras on his chest and forehead with tilak. Somebody told me that actually that Gurudev, that he wrote Prabhupada's Manjri name there. That I used salt for his body, and then following all of his proper Vaishnava procedures, I put his transcendental body into samadhi with my own hand. Prem cannot be contained within the material body. 2 minutes. One with a material body can attain up to the stage of Srup Siddhi. This is in this material body. Yet we see that Rasik Bhaktas, those who are internally situated in the exchanges with Krishna in his Leela, have prem and also appear in a body. We should understand, therefore, that their body is not a worldly material body. This body cannot bear to hold prem. In such a mood of separation, it will burst into pieces. To understand this, we must perform sadhan bhajan and become qualified. Srila Swami Maharaj was also in that mood, but he did not externally manifest it. He kept it hidden. So Gurudev is saying that the sadhak, bhav sadhak, that when they reach a certain stage, their body cannot contain prem, so they leave the body and enter into a pastime where Mahaprabhu, Radha Krishna, they perform their pastimes, and there they achieve the appropriate body which can contain prem. So it says to understand this, we must perform sadhana bhajan and become qualified. Srila Swami Raj was also in that mood, but he did not externally manifest it. He kept it hidden within himself. He had to suppress all his actual moods for his preaching purpose. His praying was displaying itself inside. So he's saying that Prabhupada, that he had that praying, which cannot be had by a normal bhav sadhak, but that he did not manifest it externally. Otherwise, all around him would have been madness if he exhibited that praying, and the preaching would have been stopped. The Udipan stimulus was always there, but he kept it inside. When he went to the West, there was Udipan for preaching. He preached, "You're not your body." He preached Gita, Jagannath worship, etc. At the end, he came back to Vrindavan Dham, relishing all those internal moods, and he was always deeply hearing and chanting Hare Krishna. He told us, "My home is in Vrindavan." Home means his loving home. Home means his real home. Srila Swami Maharaj was surely in Madhurya Ras. Some may say, why not Sakiras? I'm not denying this, because everything is present in Madhurya Ras. All other rasas, like Vatsalya Ras, Sakiras, and so on, are included in Madhurya Ras. So it may be said that all rasas were in him. He was not deprived of Sakiras. He had written some statements in his poems, and he had special affection for Gaurnitai and Krishna Balaram, but he was certainly in Madhurya Ras. Because his sannyas guru, my Gurudev, gave him the sannyas mantra and the Gopi Bhav mantra. In our Rupanuga line, just as Srila Rupa Goswami, Srila Jiva Goswami, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and his Gurudev were in this Ras. And just as he wrote in his realizations, in the purpose of his books, he was surely in Madhurya Ras. So some devotees may say that, yes, he's in Madhurya Ras as a Priya Namasaka, that they also have Madhurya Ras. But Tripurai Maharaj, he's saying the same thing and presented this to Gurudev. And Gurudev said that I have known Swamiji for so many years. It's okay that you have your realization, but I have my own. Personally, I know when Gurudev had us stand up and speak, and I was speaking about what is Raganuga, what is Rupanuga, then he stopped me and he explained that your Swami, your Prabhupada, Swamiji, that he is Rupanuga in this line, having all these moods of Srila Rupa Goswami and Rup Mandri. He corrected me and preached to me. So I pay my obeisances to all Vaishnavas, but I know that when I travel with Gurudev, that one of his main preaching points was that Prabhupada was not Sakiras, that he was in Madhurya Ras, and even there's places where he said that, I forget the exact word, but it's tantamount to that he is Manjri Bhav. It's there, but it's not, Gurudev said we should not argue, but rather we should come together as family, and we should perform Naga Sankirtan, we should preach, and we should nourish each other with love. There may be some differences of opinions, no problem. Just like Madhusudan Maharaj, he's very much my senior. Shuddha Dwaiti Maharaj, they're my senior. I love them, they're my friends, but we can beg to differ. There's no problem. But I still have so much love and affection for them. So in this way, we should have our Gaudiya Vaishnava family. That those who are in ISKCON, they are brothers. They may not, some of them may not see it, some may see it. And some of us may not see them like that. But actually, we're brothers, we're all one family. What to speak of the Gaudiyas? So many people who are in Babaji Sampradaya, they have so much respect and honor for Prabhupada, even Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada, our Prabhupada, and Srila Narayana Maharaj. Personally, I see them like my brothers. So that's where I stand. I see them as my brother. I see them as my family members. And in many cases, I may see them more closely as my family members as those who are in the Gaudiya Math, our Gaudiya Math, or within ISKCON. I'll tell you that quite frankly. But it does not deter one iota from my relationship with Srila Narayana Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. But we should be very careful that we associate with devotees, even though they may be in our extended family, that in their heart, and this is the trick, in their heart, that they really have honor and love for our Guru, that they have honor and love for Srila Narayana Maharaj. Because when we associate with them in the name of the family, but really in their heart, what their mentality, what their mood is that, oh, we want to convert him and bring him back to the real ISKCON. That's what's going on with me right now. It's a process of trying to convert me to bring me back to the real ISKCON. And now that they found out that they can't do it, I think Ashram is probably better that you go. So this is why I can speak very clearly, because I'm on my way out anyway. So, but we're all brothers. We're all family members. So we should, and what we have, we should liberally, we should give it, despite whatever institution anybody comes from. That the institutional thing is something which is a structure which is there for organization. But love goes beyond all these structural barriers. Love goes beyond all this. The real family are those who have the loving mood to serve in our Rupanuga Guru Vaga and who have honor, respect, and love for Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Bhakti Siddhanta, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Narayan Maharaj, and all our Guru Vagas. Vancha Kalpa Turubhischa. Kripa Sindhyavicha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay.
Maharaji.
Haribo?
Haribo. Dandavat.
None. Sorry, I may have gone abroad with my talking about certain things, but
Yeah, you took twice as much time, Maharaj.
sorry.
But I would sooner stand in the middle of the motorway and stand in front of an 80-mile-an-hour juggernaut than stop you in full flow, to be frank. So excuse me to everybody who was thinking this was going to end earlier. It just felt like it would have been sacrilegious to even tell Maharaj that he was over time, because I thought that was such intimate lila, such heartfelt sharing, and so appropriate in its timing that Gurudev was telling me, do not stop this person from his sharing. So thank you, Maharaj. And I wanted to add actually that I mean, it was such a deep subject, and I feel that, you know, Gurudev was always telling us to reconcile these differences, reconcile the tattvas, reconcile differences between you, reconcile different things you hear from the acharyas. So it's very important for us individually, but it's also so important for our sangha. So our little, you know, our Gurudev sangha, and it's so important for Vaishnavas across the world. And when the Vaishnavas across the world really get this message that you are sharing in all of our hearts, then this is the time that Mahaprabhu's revolution will go exponential, because it will put us at a whole different level of supra and super cooperation, that it will be an unstoppable, it's already an unstoppable divine movement, but it will manifest externally on a whole different level of momentum. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I feel like Gurudev and Prabhupada's relationship, if we meditate on that and on the seeming differences, but actually on the complete unity in reality of these two great personalities, then if we can imbibe that in our hearts and honor each other, honor the devotion in each other, then everything will change so markedly. So thank you so much, Maharaji. Thank you.